went through a heck of a lot. We'd be down at the waterfront and, our little swimsuits and little see-through little shawls over us, just thinking we was the stuff, boy. If they had marijuana, we would smoke some with them, or, we would just hang out. All her prayers and stuff brought me to where I am today. Like I was dancing in strip clubs and keep us kind of numb to what we were doing and stuff like that. He had this big hot tub and we'd all be in the hot tub, and I remember getting so high and I was driving. Felt like I drove over, it wasn't a speed bump, it felt like a body. So this is going to be another part to exposing my dark past. Thank you for tuning in to They Just Don't Understand by Nina Mitchell. I want to just be transparent about my life growing up, for generations to come, so they will know, my story. And everything is just not so glamorous, it's just, I went through a lot. I went through a heck of a lot. And so this podcast is going to be titled, I want to say part 2 of exposing my, darkest past. And the title of it, though, is going to be The Beatdown. And so it just happened to be, like in Seattle, where I grew up at, in those days, in my early 20s, or, well, I'll just say in my 20s period. I hung out with Pimp Number One's sister and another friend of hers. So it was always kind of 3 of us, hanging out. And one of them had a car. So we'd ride in her car and we'd, go to Seward Park. We'd ride all over. We just, we would just ride around to see what was happening, who was doing what. And, we'd get involved in a few things and, then we'd move on to the next. And, we just did our thing. And, we'd be down at the waterfront and, our little swimsuits and little see-through little shawls over us, just thinking we was the stuff, boy. And so, we would get a lot of attention, and some people we knew, some people we didn't. And during those days, I think we trusted a little bit more when you're young. I'm not going to say young and dumb, but that's what I'm going to say about myself, because sometimes we would run into people that would have, alcohol, and we would drink it. Nowadays, I wouldn't do that. I'm not a drinker anyway, but, you never know what's in it. So I don't do that. And I would suggest other people not to do it either. But anyway, we would, we'd ride around and, just get into stuff or run into people, see what they were doing. And, if they had marijuana, we would smoke some with them, or, we would just hang out, we just hung out. And sometimes you can just walk up and down, the main street where my grandparents lived. And I'll get to why I mentioned my grandparents' house. And so, we could walk to the store and people would drive by and honk, and, we'd stop, or they'd stop or turn around, or we get in the car and see what they're up to. They might just be, just smoking marijuana or something and sharing it with us. And then we'd probably get dropped off somewhere else, or we'd run into somebody while we're with them. And then, we'd do some car hopping. And sometimes one of us had a car and we would just do our own driving and stopping by different people's houses. And, that's just how our day went. It was just, it was just one of those things where, we was just wilding out. I'll just speak for myself. I was wilding out. And back to my grandmother's house. So there was times where, me and my cousins would sit on the porch, and, sometimes my mom or my aunt, just the family would sit on the porch, and she lived on a busy street, a main street. And so, people would pass by, they knew us. They would honk or stop by, pull up on the sidewalk and just talk for a little bit. And, it was like a parade, basically. We'd sit on the porch, and everybody, if they saw us on the porch, they'd honk, beep, beep, and, they might pull around the corner, like I said, and we would go jump in the car and go hang out. And then, sometimes I wouldn't get dropped back off at my grandparents, because I knew my eyes would be red and I wouldn't be, the way that I left. And one time she caught me, I came back, and she said, "What's wrong with your eyes? Why are your eyes red?" And I said, oh, allergies, But one thing about my grandmother, she loved me unconditional. She wasn't a fool. She knew that, I was a fast little girl, and she knew that. But, all her prayers and stuff brought me to where I am today. And so the stories that I'm telling you and sharing with you and being transparent about is in my 20s, during my 20s. And as I continue creating more content, it's going to be in my 30s and it's going to be in my 40s and so on. And we'll see, has anything changed? Has it stayed the same? Did it get worse? What happened? But I'm starting in my 20s when, like I was dancing in strip clubs and going to the boss's after parties where we go over to his house. A lot of the girls would go over to the house because they didn't serve alcohol in the strip joints, right? So look, I said strip joints. To the strip clubs. So the girls, we would have our own stuff in the back. We had to have something to keep us, keep us kind of numb to what we were doing and stuff like that, and to perform basically, a little bit better, or just not be in your mind so much, not being such a traumatic, maybe that's not the word, but just to get into a more relaxed headspace. And so there's a lot of times there were bachelor parties, and we would go, and sometimes they would turn out good, and sometimes they would turn out bad. But, that was the life then. So the owner of the club, he would, invite, I would say certain girls. I was one of them, but I don't think every girl was invited. So we would go over to his house, after the club closed, and he had this big hot tub, and we'd all be in the hot tub, and, there was all kind of substances passed around, and everything, and just, just doing the most. And then I remember just being so high one night, and I'll get back to my grandparents' house, because it's a big thing. It's coming up. But I remember getting so high, and I was driving, and it was dark out there in the north end. It wasn't wasn't as many lights as it is now. It was dark. And being high, so I'm probably sure I just think it was darker than dark. As I was leaving, it felt like I drove over, it wasn't a speed bump, it felt like a body. And I was so scared and paranoid, I didn't even look back. And to this day, I promise you, I don't know what it was. And God forgive me, it was a body. He shouldn't have been laying there, or she shouldn't have been laying there. And I'm not trying to be funny, I'm just making kind of a little joke out of it, because I don't think it was a body, but it wasn't a speed bump. I don't know what it was. So that's just kind of a highlight of part of the 20s during that time, the things that I did then. So this one particular day, Pimp Number One's sister and our friend, because I had gotten mad at, I was between the two lots of times. If I got mad at Pimp Number One that I was with for a while, then I would change the locks, and then I would get back with Pimp Number Two and give him the key, and then when Pimp Number One come, the locks had been changed, and so, it'd be a little bit of drama there, because Pimp Number Two was there, and he was holding it down, like, yeah, she's with me now, and all this and all that. So I said all that to say, when I would be in between, with my fast little self, I would, hang out with my girlfriends, and, we would just, either we would be driving if someone had a car, or we would just be walking in the neighborhood, or walking up the street to the store and run into people that way. And so this particular day, we were doing that. And I want to say too, I'm not glamorizing this, I'm just being transparent, and this is just leaving a legacy, so what, it doesn't, sound good, and it's not really something that anyone should be proud of. It's not that. But I'm just being transparent, because there's so many people that go to their grave with all these secrets and all these things that they've done, and kids, not just kids, grown people like me not knowing who their father is, because it was done in the dark. And I guess that, like they say, what's done in the dark comes out in the light. The light never turned on, because I still don't know who my father is, right? But I sure appreciate the man who who raised me and stood in the father position. Rest in peace, Charlie Carter. So I was, we were out, hanging out, walking around, cars beep, 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 beep. We were just getting into mischief, just doing whatever. And I want to talk about the prostitution part of this, because sometimes when we were out and someone stopped, it wouldn't be just about like a good time hanging out at Seward Park or going, to people's house and, having a little cocktail here and there. It would be about some money, So we knew that if that person was getting in the car for some money, we would know where they would come back to, so we'd meet up. We had a little thing going on, and we'd keep up with each other. So this particular day, as things were going on, things were going down like that, friends, money, we were out there hustling, always looking for something to get into. So as it got later, I decided to go home, and I don't think they went with me. I know I was by myself. I'm going to tell you why I know I was by myself, because I left the house by myself. And my grandmother lived right next door to where substances were being sold. And so I wasn't going for the hard substance. I was just going for some marijuana, And the reason why I'm saying all that is because earlier that day, a friend that I went to school with, it was their brother. So I knew the whole family. So, I had ran into him, and he was like, well, come on, let's go kick it. And I was thinking, okay, because I was, like I said, mad at pimp number 1 or 2, whichever one. I was in between. And I thought it was cool, because I knew the family, I knew the guy and everything. And he really wasn't, a pimp guy. He was more on the side of a D-boy, but he might have had some, some girls walking the streets at night. Who knows? Daytime, afternoon, who knows? So, but still, I thought, I felt safe. I thought it was, a good thing. So, we'd ride around, and he had his substance, and he would share it with me, and we made stops at different places, and, I was seen with him, and, I didn't think nothing of it, because everybody knew everybody, and so, again, I didn't think nothing of it. I just really didn't. And, as I'm saying this, I'm trying to see in my mind, really, what was I thinking? And absolutely nothing. I thought I was safe. I really did. I thought I was safe. And so the evening progressed, and, he was talking. He might have been saying something like, I like you, and then, when you're under the influence, you'll say anything just to keep it coming, so... And there was no sexual activity involved or anything. We were just talking, and he probably was, trying to get me to just really like him, and thought because I got into his car that I was choosing. And I don't know if I mentioned this before in any of the other podcasts, but choosing means that you're leaving the pimp you have, and you're choosing another one, and you give them, the new one, the money you have, if you have any. Or when you go out to make some, you bring it back to him, right? The new one. I hope you're following me. So I'm in the car with a friend. I thought was a friend. And who lived next door to my grandmother. That everybody knew, who we were, where she lived. It was, like a little, I want to say it's just a little place you can stop and have a good few laughs and, and keep it pushing, right? So now I'm back to riding in the car. I'm riding in the car. We're riding all around. Starting to get late. I get dropped off at home, and I don't remember exactly what the conversation was, because I was just probably gaming just to keep getting, what he had on him, just thinking it was all free, It was, nothing is free, especially when it comes to that. So later on that day, I said, I know where I can get, a little bit of marijuana. So I said, well, let me go over there. But I did not want my grandmother to see me going next door, because she knew the activity over there. So at my grandmother's house, she had a big picture window, and she had an artificial tree right in the middle of the window. So she would close her curtains right to the edge of the so there's the tree here. She would close the curtains right to the edge, and so she could peek through the leaves and see things. She would watch people, And so I didn't want to come past her house. One particular way, I would have to come past her house to go next door. And on the other hand, I would have to go around the corner, take a couple extra blocks, and go next door, but not walk on the sidewalk to the house. I would have to kind of come up and cut like to the side, kind of like that, I'm making a big issue out of it. It's not that big of a deal, but I didn't want to be seen by my grandparents. I didn't want them to know I was over there. So I get inside, and it felt a little funny, but I'm not, I'm still not tripping. I'm not even worried about anything. I'm just like, hey, we had a nice time today, and, that was good, and, we conversed, quite a bit, and his brother came in, and we all were talking, and, we smoked a little, marijuana together. We're just talking, and I'm thinking, why is this taking so long? Why are we sitting here just chopping it up, and I'm not getting what I came for. I'm ready to go back home so I can just chill. But he keeps talking and talking and talking, and now I can't say verbatim what the conversation was about, but thinking about it now, it was about me choosing him. And I didn't have to say that I chose him. My actions spoke that, because I got into his car and was seen by other people. So as we're sitting there, and we're talking, and, and I'm thinking, okay, so, I'm about ready to go. I said, okay, so, I probably only had about $10 or $20 on me, something like that. I was only going to take what I wanted, to purchase anyway. So I took that with me, and it was almost like, I'm going to say it like this: break yourself. And what that means back in the day is any money that you have on you, drop it right now. Take it out of your pocket, out of your purse, out of your bra, your boot, whatever, and it's mine. So that's where the choosing comes in at. And I was like, well, I was so stunned that he had changed, because earlier that day he was, we were having a good time. We were talking, and I guess that's how he reeled me in. I was totally blindsided. And so finally, after probably about 20 minutes to a half hour, we're talking. He's like, well, go in the kitchen and get it. Go in the kitchen. It's in the kitchen. And I'm thinking, well, why can't you just go in the kitchen and get it? Or why can't you? Why don't you have it on? Why do I have to go in the kitchen and get it? That just didn't make any sense, because I couldn't, and where I was sitting at, the house was laid out just like my grandparents. So you could be sitting in the living room or the dining room, and you can see the kitchen, but there was a little cut to the left that you couldn't see where the stove was. But if someone was in the kitchen, you would see them, or you would hear movement or whatever. And then there was a little area before you went out the back door. So I looked in the kitchen, and I didn't see anybody. And I'm thinking, now, why is he having me go into the kitchen? I mean, I looked, I didn't see anything. I'm like, what the heck? So anyway, I get up and I go in the kitchen, and there's 3 youngsters back there, and they started beating me down. They were kicking, they were punching, they were pushing, they were jabbing. I mean, not any weapons. I mean, it was just a beat down, fists, feet, all that kind of stuff. And I could not do anything to defend myself. I didn't see it coming, because usually I would carry a knife with me or something, But I didn't see that coming, because I was so comfortable with the family. And I couldn't scream out for help, because who was going to hear me? My grandparents were probably watching, whatever stories that older people at that time watched, or they might have been asleep. Who knows? But I did not have any defense. I didn't have any help. I didn't have anything but a bunch of bruises and scratches and blood running down my face when I left. And of course, no, I didn't leave with any product. Nope, did not leave with any product. The product was that Beatdown, because I trusted him. I got in the car with him, and that, in his mind, and maybe in the game, no, I ain't gonna say maybe, in the game at that time, if you were to do something like that, you were choosing, because if you were with another pimp and you got into another pimp's car, you had chose him. I don't care if you were in a breakup, you were him, you were his then, And so I think he was talking about me going out on the street for him and all this, and I was thinking, no, I don't like you like that. But this was after I had already gotten to the car. So yeah, that beat down was something I'll never ever forget, ever forget. And it makes me think of like today's time. You really have to be careful. I mean, even with people that that you think you can trust, you really have to be careful just being around your so-called friends sometimes, because you don't know what kind of spirit is in them, what their motives may really be, because it could be a trap, like I was set up. You know, anything can happen. I've heard stories about people going to Mexico and all this kind of stuff, and I feel sorry for that girl who they killed, that was so horrific. Just things like that, and those were supposed to be her friends. So it could have been worse for me. A beat down, that was a beat down. It could have been a lot worse. And so when I finally left that house, when they finally released me, because I felt like I was being held captive when I first walked in, because it just took too long to get this little package of weed, and I was like, this is really taking too long. And so when I finally left, I slid out the same way I came in so my grandparents couldn't see me, because I've always felt like I never wanted to let my grandparents down. I'm the oldest of all the cousins and stuff, so and I just, even though my grandparents knew, basically the lifestyle I was in and the things I was doing, I still wanted their respect, if that makes sense. I still wanted their, not necessarily approval, but I still wanted them to love me, basically. And that's what my grandmother was to me. She was an unconditional lover. She didn't care what I did, how high I got, if I had taken Valiums and laid down on her floor and passed out. She would not let anybody bother me. She would let me sleep it off. I could come walk over to her house if one of the pimps I was, with, they were living with me, and nobody had money. It probably was a bad night or a bad week. And I would walk over to her house, and she would give me bacon and eggs and bread so we can make breakfast. And she would say, yeah, I know you're over there feeding that guy. She knew. She was a Southern woman. She was brought up in the South, in Texas. She knew how things went. I'm quite sure she had stories, which I'm so sorry that I never asked. And she probably wouldn't have told me, because they kept a lot of stuff, private. They didn't want, you wasn't going to be in their business anyway. And then me being as young as I was at the time, asking her some personal questions like that, I don't think she would have gave me straight answers, So that's why I decided to be so transparent with my life, so my grandkids and grandkids after that and, generations to come, they will know, it's like, see, as you get older, you should get wiser and you move differently, and then when you really trust God and surrender to Him, your life changes totally. Like, you don't even look like where you came from. And so I want them to know the good, the bad, and the ugly side, because sometimes they may have traits of, the things I've went through. And, I just hope that they can watch these videos, it might be a different type of media at that time, whatever, I don't know, but oh gosh, it's just so much I want to say. So I'm writing books, about that, so maybe the books will be out, digital or however, about my life, because I only tell so much on the YouTube channel. There's more graphics that, I could talk about, but I don't want to get it canceled or, so another book is coming out and it'll be more detailed about the things that really went down. But back to leaving that house. I left that house bloody, messed up. I ran back home and I was so embarrassed. And I was so embarrassed that I really couldn't tell anyone. I really couldn't say anything to anyone. I might have told, my, no, I don't think I told anyone. I really don't think I told anyone that. Yeah, I don't think I said anything to anyone. I just had to go home and lick my wounds and call it a day. I was more embarrassed than anything. And then eventually I got back with either one or two, Pimp 1 or 2, and I never even talked about that. I didn't even tell them. So if they knew about it, they kept it on the low because I never heard anything about it from anybody else, and that was one of the worst beatdowns that I had ever gotten. It was 3 young men just pushing, punching, kicking, and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? What I thought was just a little joyride turned into a beatdown. So I hope, I'm not saying that you should enjoy listening to this, but I'm just coming to you as transparent as I can. I choose to be transparent, put it that way, just for those coming behind me. This is my story. So that's all it is. But I do appreciate you for subscribing and listening, and share the video if you choose to. A lot of well, I'm not going to say friends, because friends is really, to me, that word holds a lot of weight, and people like to use friends loosely, and I don't. So I'll say those that I know, or associates. You want to share it with someone, because I know some people will say, what? Yes. That was my life. So, again, I hope you enjoyed listening. Thank you for tuning in. And stay tuned for the next episodes of They Just Don't Understand by Nina Mitchell. Take care.